Former President Trump lashing out today after last night's primetime hearing. It placed him at the center of a plot to overturn the 2020 election. The former president doubling down on the big lie that the election was stolen. He called his former attorney general stupid and a coward. His own daughter, Ivanka, distanced herself from the lie. Trump now says she was checked out, and he denied ever saying, "Hang Mike Pence." Tonight, we have new information about what the committee plans to do in the next set of hearings and who will be called upon to testify. The committee plans to build off the information we got last night, some of it new and in much richer detail than we had before. On the claim that there was election fraud, multiple people told the president that it just wasn't true, including one of the president's own campaign lawyers. He told White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows that he wasn't finding anything sufficient to change the rules.
And what was Mr. Meadows' reaction to that information?
I believe the words he used were, "So there's no there."
And in the deposition revealed last night, the president's own Attorney General, Bill Barr, also made it clear this stuff was crazy stuff. His assessment convinced Ivanka.
I made it clear I did not agree with the idea of saying the election was stolen and putting out this stuff, which I told the president was bull.
How did that affect your perspective about the election when Attorney General Barr made that statement?
It affected my perspective. I respect Attorney General Barr. So I accepted what he was saying.
Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney also teased a critical aspect of the investigation. She indicated that they have evidence that shows the White House was well aware of the threat against the Capitol.
As you will see in our hearings, the White House was receiving specific reports in the days leading up to January 6th, including during President Trump's Ellipse rally, indicating that elements in the crowd were preparing for violence at the Capitol.
While the attack unfolded, the president did nothing to try to stop it, according to Congresswoman Cheney. Even as Vice President Pence, loyal to him for years, was in harm's way. You see him here being moved away as the violent mob was nearing and chanting, "Hang Mike Pence."
You will hear testimony that, quote, the president did not really want to put anything out, calling off the riot or asking his supporters to leave. You will hear that President Trump was yelling and, quote, really angry at advisors who told him he needed to be doing something more. And aware of the rioters' chants to hang Mike Pence, the president responded with this sentiment, quote, maybe our supporters have the right idea. Mike Pence, quote, deserves it.
And it was the vice president himself who called for military help, not the president. That revelation made last night from a deposition the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, gave.
There were 2 or 3 calls with Vice President Pence. He was very animated, and he issued very explicit, very direct, unambiguous orders. There was no question about that. And I can get you the exact quotes, I guess, from some of our records somewhere, but he was very animated, very direct, very firm, and to Secretary Miller. Get the military down here, get the Guard down here, put down this situation, etc.
The president, the committee says, did not perpetuate the big lie alone. He had help, including from members of Congress who, after the 6th, took a step that only someone who thinks they may be charged with a crime would take.
Representative Perry contacted the White House in the weeks after January 6th to seek a presidential pardon. Multiple other Republican congressmen also sought presidential pardons for their roles in attempting to overturn the 2020 election.
Congressman Perry denies ever asking for a pardon. All of this part of what the committee calls Mr. Trump's 7-part plan to stay in power and resist the will of the people. Early ratings from Nielsen indicate more than 19 million Americans watched last night's hearing, about the same audience as a big Sunday night football game, but far short of a presidential debate. NBC's Scott Wong covers Capitol Hill for us. Scott, where does the committee take the hearings next?
Well, Chairman Benny Thompson has said that the next 6 hearings or so will each have its own theme. So this first hearing was sort of their opening statement. The next hearing comes. I'm sorry?
I apologize for the interruption. Please continue.
Oh, okay. The next hearing comes Monday morning, which will focus on examining the lies that President Trump and some of his allies perpetrated that the committee says led people to storm the Capitol. One person who will be testifying is Chris Stirewalt, a former Fox News political editor who had come under fire from President Trump when the Fox team made the bold and correct decision to call Arizona in the 2020 election for Joe Biden. Stirewalt also has clashed with some of his former colleagues at Fox News, accusing them of parroting some of the lies, baseless claims about that the election was stolen. There's another hearing coming down the pipe that is focused on the Justice Department. The committee says they are going to offer evidence about Trump's unsuccessful plan to oust the acting Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen and replace him with a more sympathetic figure named Jeffrey Clark. NBC News has confirmed that Rosen, as well as 2 other former Justice Department officials, will testify at that upcoming hearing later next week. Some other hearings I just want to briefly touch on will focus on President Trump's pressure on Mike Pence, his own vice president, to overturn the election in the counting of the electoral ballots process. And finally, down the road, there is another hearing that will be focused on Trump's pressure at the state level. Specifically, they're going to be looking at Trump's effort to apply pressure on people like Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State in Georgia. If you remember, he wanted Raffensperger on a phone call to find 11,000 votes. And so each of these hearings will have their own theme with live testimony from many of these figures, Shep, that we've heard and read about over the last 17 months.
Scott Wong, thanks very much.